Okay, this morning I'm going to talk quickly and briefly about the heat recovery ventilator, which we are installing now. The heat recovery ventilator is something that not a lot of people know about yet because they aren't being used a lot. They're only used for new construction that's really airtight. Airtight meaning this house is deliberately being sealed up really well so that not a lot of air can pass through the walls into the house. And in order to have a sufficient amount of air, the air should change over 7 times per hour in a house. So those are conflicting goals. Number one, you want to keep all the air in the house because you don't want to lose any of the heat that you've heated up. And number two, you want to change over all the air so that you have enough air to breathe that's doesn't have any toxins, pollution, carbon monoxide in it. So it's good to get that fresh air from the outside. So this thing has 4 pipes. One pipe takes air in from the outside. One pipe takes air in from the inside. One air brings that air from the outside in, and one brings that air from the inside out. This thing can push a lot of air through, and so it's going to be venting the house. But what it does, it's called a heat recovery ventilator because it actually takes the air that's coming in and puts it through an aluminum core. An aluminum core is a way for the heat that's in that air from the outside to run through this kind of metal system that's inside, and it'll actually collect heat off of that aluminum core. Where is that heat coming from? That heat is coming from the air that's been sucked in to the system from the inside of the house. So if it's, say, 70 degrees inside and 30 degrees outside or 40 degrees outside, the air that's running through the system from the indoors is heating up that aluminum core. It's a whole bunch of a whole bunch of like small tubes basically. And meanwhile, that cold air is being sucked in, going through that same kind of aluminum core, not the exact same tubes, but tubes that are adjacent to. And it's actually taking conductive and radiant heat from that indoor heat and putting it into that outdoor air as it's coming into the house. So this is doing 2 things. It's giving, or a few things. It's giving us fresh air to breathe, number 1. Number 2, it's recovering the heat. And number 3, 2 more things. It's balancing air pressure and vapor pressure on the inside and outside of the house. So on the inside of the house, it might be really let's say that there's a higher amount of air pressure, and the outside there's a lower amount of air pressure during a weather during a storm or something. So pressure wants to move from high to low. So both when there's low pressure systems outside, the high pressure indoors wants to leak out, and we don't want to do that because we'd be losing energy that we've used to heat up the house. Similarly, if the house is colder than it is outside, if it's really hot outside, or if there's air pressure is high, then air is going to want to leak into the house, and it's going to want to carry in that outdoor temperature. Again, we don't want to do that. So this balances the air pressure on the inside and outside, so that there's less tendency for the air on the outside or air on the inside to want to leak through the wall envelope and carry with it energy as well as toxins or whatever it's going through in the wall assembly. Number 2, it's balancing vapor. So instead of vapor wants to balance out just like air does. Wants to go from high pressure systems to low pressure systems. So if it's very humid out, it's going to have a tendency to want to come through the walls. If it's very humid in the bathroom, that's going to want to have a tendency to go through the walls. Well, this thing will carry out that vapor pressure and kind of balance it out so that there's less tendency for the vapor to want to work its way through the wall assembly and rot out or mold the wall system itself. So there's some ducting associated with this HRV. There's these 6-inch flex ducts here that run down, and this is going to run to a 90-degree elbow right there, and this is going to run down to a square duct when that runs out through a vent on the outside. And this is what's called a Y duct here, because this splits from 1 to 2 valves And then, uh, let's see what else. That's probably it. Well, anyway, so that's more than you ever probably wanted to know about it, and heat recovery ventilator. But as more and more houses are constructed that are relatively airtight, these are going to become more common, and something you might hear about in the future. Sometimes they can be tied into existing duct systems for HVAC. In this case, it's a standalone system. And it's going to serve to not only ventilate the house, but also ventilate the bathroom, so it's going to be tied into that same system.